Hello, fifth grade fantasy readers. By now, I hope that you're really into your fantasy novels and you have discovered why they come from such a unique genre. I want to take a moment to review what we discussed a few weeks ago, and that is about the settings. We know that a setting can start off in an unrealistic, magical place right from the very beginning. And other times, you start out in a world that you know, and it leads you to a fantasy world. And other times, it's in a futuristic world. Today, I want to focus on characters and the plot of a fantasy story. I want to discuss with you a way for you to understand and identify clues that the author wants you to notice while you're reading. One thing I know for sure is that fantasy reading is tough, and the authors always try to help the readers out, and they provide clues for you through the mouths of the other characters. One character might describe an incident or a legend or a part of history, and the author is hoping that you pick up on this. And the fact is that you're really learning alongside the other characters. The author wants you to know and wants you to be alert as a reader. They want you to pick up when these things are happening, but they don't really let you know. Sometimes it's up to you to fill in your own gaps so that you're able to comprehend the text just a little bit better. Often the main character has some dramatic experiences in your books, and the character will come away with new realizations because of it. We technically are on the same learning curve as the main characters. We're learning right alongside of them in fantasy stories. Right now, I want you to listen to this clip that takes place in Narnia, this magical world, when Master Tumnus meets Lucy for the very first time. He was hidden behind a tree. She comes out and questions, "Why were you hiding?" And from there, they have a conversation.
What am I asking? What are you?
Well, I'm a fawn. And what about you? You must be some kind of beardless dwarf.
I'm not a dwarf. I'm a girl. And actually, I'm tallest in my class.
You mean to say that you're a daughter of Eve?
Well, my mum's name is Helen.
Yes, but you are, in fact, human.
Yes, of course.
What are you doing here?
Well, I was hiding in the wardrobe in the spare room. And
Spare room? Is that in Narnia?
Narnia? What's that?
Oh, dear girl, you're in it. Everything from the lamppost all the way to Castle Cair Paravel on the Eastern Ocean. Every stick and stone you see, every icicle, is Narnia.
So awfully big wardrobe.
I'm sorry, please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Tumnus.
Pleased to meet you, Mr. Tumnus. I'm Miss Pevensey.
And she sticks out her hand.
Oh, you shake it.
Why?
I don't know. People do it when they meet each other.
He looks confused, he reaches out, and he shakes her hand. And at that moment, we've just now learned something new about Mr. Tubness. He is learning right alongside about what it means to be human. As a reader, we are pulled into his thoughts and his feelings as he questions Lucy about the handshake. This kind of thing happens all the time in fantasy books. We have to be alert and we have to be ready for it. So, when we look at fantasy picture books, how are they different from the fantasy chapter books we're learning about right now? Well, when you were little, you would read things like Where the Wild Things Are and The Lorax. We're going to be pretty lucky today because Mrs. Foltz will be reading this to us. Sometimes we need a little bit of help, though, when we're reading our chapter books because they're a little bit more difficult. They have multiple plot lines and lots of characters, and the characters change and evolve over time. So today, I'm going to share one way that I kind of take in keeping track of all of this. You might think it's pointless to keep track as you read, but I can assure you that it will help you with your comprehension. Your novels will become more difficult as the plot lines get stronger and your stories continue to unfold. So let's take a look right here at this chart. I just took the scene that just happened and I recorded a few things down to help me. I'll give you a moment to look at it. When you have time to evaluate your characters and understand information from their point of view, it helps you connect a little bit more to the world that they live in and to who they are. Having a Google Doc such as this will help you add information about your characters and how they evolve and sometimes change throughout your stories. I always tell my students to refrain from making assumptions about their characters at the beginning of their stories because characters are bound to change. They're dynamic, and this happens all the time. In this lesson, you will find a chart similar to this one, but it'll be blank. I provided it for your own tracking, for your characters, their personality traits, their actions, and the background information. Perhaps even some things that you keep in mind that change and that you want to make note of, you can make on your chart. We truly hope that you're enjoying your fantasy stories that you've selected. In this lesson, we want to remind you that you should be reading about 20 minutes per day, and the goal is to be done with your book by May 25th. You will have today a story read to you by Mrs. Foltz called The Lorax. There will be a few questions on the Checking for Understanding form, so make sure that you listen to it. Once you're done filling out the Checking for Understanding form, you will also be asked to reply a few more things about the fantasy book that you currently are reading. You'll press Submit, then the Turn In button. The chart that has been provided for you, it's yours to use. You can mark it up, change the titles. It won't be graded, but we do encourage you to use it or a notebook to keep track of all the things that are happening between your characters and the plot in your story. I miss all of you. Now off you go and enjoy your reading.